Part 1. 20 years ago, I lost the only girl I ever loved. And even then, I still didn't know if she ever loved me back. Being back here today, the school sign looks smaller than I remember. Fresh paint. Clean lines. As if time has been more kind to it than it has been to me. My name is Zawadi Juma. I'm here for the Silver Jubilee alumni fundraiser, to shake hands, smile for photos, write a check. I'm not here to remember her. At least that's what I tell myself. Girls in green uniforms line the driveway, singing for us in bright, unbroken voices. I used to stand there too. 17. Certain. Terrified of nothing except exams and being caught after lights out. Now I'm 38, stepping off a bus full of accomplished alumni, pretending I don't feel like something unfinished has just started breathing again. And then I see her. Angie Mutua. Standing near the registration desk. Speaking to one of the teachers with that same composed stillness she had even as a teenager. Spine straight. Chin slightly lifted. Calm like a surface of water that refuses to ripple. I tell myself I am prepared. I'm not. She looks up. Our eyes meet. There's no dramatic pause. Just recognition. And 20 years fall away in the space between one heartbeat and the next. I'm catapulted back to the way she used to look at me across the class when she thought I wasn't watching. I remember how her fingers would hesitate before letting go when we passed notes in the classroom during night prep. How she never moved her knee away when it brushed mine under the desk. We never named what that was. No one questioned us. No one else held my hand under the dining table either. On cold nights, when our beds ended up pushed together, we pretended it was because the dormitory windows didn't shut properly. We never addressed the real reason. Because saying it would have made it real. And real things could be taken away. And now, 2 decades later, Angie's here. Walking towards me. Zawadi, she says, voice smooth as ever. She sounds steady. Like a careful adult. Angie. I respond. We shake hands. Like how strangers greet each other. Not like the girls who once shared a blanket during a school trip. Not like the girls who used to sit shoulder to shoulder on chapel steps long after everyone else had gone inside. Her hand is warm. She lets go first. We are assigned to the same tour group. Because life and fate have a wicked sense of humor. The day is structured around development projects. New science labs. Library expansions. Funding appeals. The school administration speaks in numbers and future plans. I try to focus and fail. Every corridor feels layered with ghosts. The polished floor outside Kilimanjaro dormitory catches the light. I slow there without meaning to. We used to empty into this hallway in restless waves, girls laughing too loudly, prefects shushing us. And then it would thin out until it was just us. Angie would stand too close, back against the wall, reciting poetry under her breath. It was part of her English revision, she said. She always claimed she memorized better aloud. I would lean opposite her, arms folded, trying to look unimpressed. I learned the cadence of her voice before I learned the poem she recited. She would pause sometimes to see if I was listening. Of course, I always was. A group of current students rushes past me now, breaking the spell. I keep walking. We file back outside. The administrator gestures toward the open stretch behind the building. We're planning to landscape this entire area next term, he says brightly. The old jacaranda may have to come down. My world narrows. The jacaranda. I don't look at her. I don't need to. Her stiff posture beside me tells me she's also looking at the tree. Wind moves through the branches, and something in my chest tightens the way it used to back then. Before everything unraveled. Back when we had kneeled on this very soil. A wooden box between us. Inside it were 2 tin cans that would soon hold letters we had written to our future selves and to each other. You wrote yours. I had asked. I did mine. No peeking. When do we open them? She had asked. In 10 years, I had said. Together. She had studied me. That long, steady look that always made me feel chosen. We sealed the tins, buried the box, and pressed the soil flat with our palms, as if sealing a promise into the ground. But even after 10 years, we never came back for our time capsule. Not after the rumors began. Not after I sat in the headmistress's office and was told, in a voice lined with warning, that our conduct had consequences. I had concluded then that she must have reported me to protect herself. A burst of applause pulls me back from the memory. The school tour continues, punctuated by applause, alumni chatter, and polite laughter. I can feel her beside me, carefully composed. I wonder if she ever thinks about that day the way I do. I wonder if she remembers how close we used to sit. How her head would sometimes rest on my chest during thunderstorms, and both of us would snuggle in, neither of us commenting on it. Were we naive? Or were we just afraid? By the time the buses are called to take us back to the hotel for the evening gala, the air feels too tight. I'm going to walk around a bit, I say to the group, not quite looking at her. She studies me for a second. The group filters into the buses and leave. The campus quiets. The students have retreated to the dining hall for the usual 6 o'clock dinner. I walk toward the jacaranda tree as if on autopilot. The soil is harder than I remember. I kneel anyway. I tell myself I just want to see if our box is still there. I tell myself I won't open it. I don't acknowledge what I'm really afraid of. After some digging, the stick I'm using hits metal. The wooden box must have rotten away. I stop breathing. Slowly, carefully, I brush away dirt until 2 small cans emerge. They seem intact, just like our past. I lift them up. It would be easy to open them. No one would know. But our rule was simple. We were to do it together. Even after everything, I can't break that. I press them against my chest and close my eyes. For 20 years, I've told myself a story. That I loved her more. That she was the one ashamed of what we had. Ashamed of what we became. That I was foolish. Now the truth is sitting in my hands. And I don't know which would undo me more. Finding out I was wrong. Or finding out I wasn't. I stand. The hotel awaits. So does she. And for the first time in 20 years, the past is no longer safely buried. Part 2. The hotel ballroom smells like polished wood and expensive perfume. Too bright. Too celebratory for what I have in my handbag. I keep my hand resting on it under the table, as if someone might steal it. As if it might try to escape. Angie is seated 3 chairs away. Speeches begin. The headmistress thanks donors. A slideshow flickers across the far wall. Girls holding trophies, girls who have no idea yet how different the future might be. I sip water. Angie laughs at something the woman beside her says. The sound travels through me the way it always used to. Low, restrained, a laugh that never needed to be loud to be felt. I used to wait for that laugh. I used to create reasons to hear it. Across the table, she glances at me. A measured gaze. There's a question in her eyes. You went back? She seems to ask. I don't nod. I don't need to. Her gaze drops briefly to my bag. She knows. Of course she knows. She always knew when I was hiding something. There was a time she could read my moods from silly things, like the way I tied my tie. If it was slightly crooked, she would lean over during assembly and straighten it without asking. You rush everything, she used to murmur. I stopped rushing after she stopped touching me. Soon, dinner is served. Cutlery clinks. Someone mentions children. Someone else mentions London. Boards. Foundations. Angie speaks when addressed. She is now Dr. Mutua. Pediatric surgeon. Calm hands. Measured voice. The kind of woman people trust with fragile things. I fleetingly wonder if she ever trusted herself with us. When it's my turn to speak, I keep it efficient. Corporate strategy consultant. No spouse. No elaboration. The introductions continue, but I'm only half listening. I picture the buried letters folded tight, ink pressed hard by girls who didn't yet understand what caution could cost. After dessert, the music begins. Soft jazz. Nostalgic. Manipulative. People drift toward the dance floor. Angie stands. She smooths her dress and walks toward me. The small movement draws my eyes longer than it should. I steady my breathing before she reaches me. Up close, her voice lowers. She has always spoken softer when it's just us. I used to lean in to catch it. I resist the instinct now. You look well, she says. Careful. Measured. You always did. I almost smile. My throat tightens anyway. Thank you. A pause. Can we talk? She asks. Neutral. We step out onto the terrace. It's quieter here. Below us, the city hums indifferent. We stand side by side. Not touching. 20 years shrink to the space between our shoulders. You went back to our tree, she says. Not accusing. Just certain. Yes. And? I hold her gaze. The cans are intact. A flicker crosses her face. Gone in a second. You dug them up. Would you rather I hadn't? The question lingers. She looks past me, toward the dark outline of trees. I don't know. She inhales. Holds it. I always thought, maybe the letters were safer buried. There it is. Safer buried. The words scrape something raw in me. It's not like they were dangerous, I say. Her eyes sharpen. You don't know that. And the way she says it. It isn't defensive, but more like dangerous remembrance. And suddenly, we are 17 again. Behind the dormitory. Too close to be accidental. Foreheads almost touching. Our words thinning to whispers. Feeling her breath warm against my mouth and pretending our proximity was normal. Back on the terrace, I swallow. Why would it matter? I ask. You told me I imagined it. The hurt slips out before I can stop it. Wind moves between us. She closes her eyes. I know. She says it like confession. That day, the memory hits before she finishes. The headmistress's office. Her voice, cool and lined with warning. Girls like you must be careful. Reputations are fragile. I remember walking out of that room burning with humiliation. And Angie not following. That was the day I decided she had chosen herself. I told myself she had given them my name to protect hers. I carried that version for 20 years. Back on the terrace, Angie grips the railing. That day, she says quietly, they called me in first. The air changes. They said they'd call my parents. They said you were confused. She swallows. They told me to stop encouraging your behavior. My behavior. The phrase still stings. I was terrified, she says. Not of you. She pauses. I was terrified of them. Of what they would do to you. The wind presses her dress against her legs. Wind presses her dress against her legs. And I notice things I shouldn't. I remember the days after. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes. The shadows beneath them. I called it guilt. I now realize it was fear. I thought you told them, I say. And I thought you despised me, she says back, and her voice cracking slightly. Something in my chest loosens and tightens at the same time. I reach into my bag. The small cans feel smaller than they did under the tree. I didn't open them, I say. Her shoulders lower a fraction. Why not? Because we said we'd do it together. The words land between us again. She steps closer. I can feel the heat of her now, the faint trace of perfume, something soft, clean, and powdery. Do you still want to open them? She asks. Her voice is lower. Another step. Close enough that if either of us shifts, we'll touch. We wrote them before we learned how to lie to ourselves, she says. That does it. I think about the girl I was. Stubborn, reckless with hope. I think about the woman I became. Careful, strategic, allergic to vulnerability. Angie says my name. Her voice soft, not as greeting, but as something held carefully in her mouth. If we open it, we don't get to pretend anymore, she says. And that, more than anything, is what terrifies me. I let my eyes travel over her properly now, the steadiness she's constructed, the regret she hasn't managed to conceal, the question she is no longer hiding. She is closer than she was a moment ago. I hold out the box. Then let's stop hiding. Her fingers close over mine as she runs her fingers on the lid. Heat flashes up my arm. She is standing in front of me, braver than she was ever allowed to be. We don't open it. Not with music bleeding through the doors. Come upstairs. I say. The words are quiet. Intentional. She searches my face for a second that stretches too long. Then she nods. We walk back inside, the space between us charged and deliberate. Part 3. The hallway to my room feels longer than it should. The carpet swallows our footsteps. The lighting is soft, discreet. Anonymous art on the walls. A place designed for temporary stays. Inside, I lock the door. The click sounds louder than it is. Angie walks to the window while I set the box on the desk between us. The city lights fall over her gently, and for a second I forget how to breathe. She has always been softness. Not fragile, just yielding in the way warm things are. The curve of her shoulders beneath the fabric of her blouse. The quiet fullness at her hips. The way her waist narrows under my gaze before easing outward again. She doesn't pose. She never has. She just stands there, unaware of how devastating she is, even when she's not trying. Her hair slips forward when she tilts her head, brushing her cheek. She tucks it back absent-mindedly, and the simple movement exposes the line of her neck. I remember that neck. I remember wanting to press my mouth there just to see if she would sigh. The thought lands low in my body, warm and disobedient. 20 years, and my hands still know exactly where they would rest. She turns slightly, and the light catches her mouth, soft, curved, familiar in a way that makes my chest tighten. That mouth once whispered my name like it was something precious. The room is beige and forgettable. She is all warmth and gravity. And it hits me with humiliating clarity. I did not miss the idea of her. I missed the way my body answered when she was near. For a moment, neither of us moves. Then I sit. She joins me. Do you want to go first? I ask, voice suddenly husky. She shakes her head. No. You open them. The cans are still wrapped in plastic meant to protect them from rain. I lift them out carefully and flip the lids. Her handwriting is on one note. Mine on the other. Seeing my 17-year-old script, earnest and rounded, hits harder than I expect. I hand Angie hers. She stares at it like it might detonate. We unfold them at the same time. The paper trembles in my hand as I begin to read my 20-year-old letter. Angie, I keep trying to write this calmly, but I can't. I don't know what this is called. I just know that when you touch my arm, I forget how to think straight. When you laugh at something I say, I feel like I've won a prize I didn't know I was competing for. You make me feel chosen. And I choose you back. On purpose. If they say it's wrong, I don't care. I've never been good at backing down. I would stand in front of you every time. If it gets hard, I'll take the hard part. If someone has to be blamed, let it be me. I don't want to look back one day and wonder if I was brave enough to love you out loud. So, this is me being brave. I love you. Even if the world doesn't clap for it. Even if it costs me. Across from me, Angie has gone utterly still. I look up. She's crying. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just silent tears sliding down a face that has spent 2 decades composed. I swallow. Can I? I ask softly. She nods and hands me her letter. Her paper is folded more tightly, as if even then she was trying to contain something. I unfold it. Dear Z, if we are reading this together, then somehow we survived being afraid. When you hold my hand, I feel like the world rearranges itself around us. Like nothing bad could happen. But I know it can. I hear the way teachers talk. I see the way people stare at girls who step outside the lines. You are meant for stadiums and rooms where people listen when you speak. I cannot bear the thought of anyone shrinking you because of me. I am not afraid of loving you. I am afraid of them hurting you for it. If I ever step back, please know it is not because I feel less. It is because I feel too much, and I don't know how to keep you safe from it. You matter more to me than I know how to say. I just don't know how to hold something this big without dropping it. The room tilts. For 20 years, I have lived inside a story where I loved her more. For 20 years, she has lived inside a story where she failed me. Both of us were wrong. Both of us faithful to a version of events that never asked the other for correction. I lower the paper slowly. You chose me. I say. I did. She whispers. But you pushed me away. I whisper brokenly. I was 17, she says, voice low and breaking. I thought if I denied it hard enough, they would stop looking at you. I close my eyes. All those years of believing she had been ashamed. All those years of armoring myself against a betrayal that never existed. I would have fought, I say. I know, she replies. That's what scared me. A fragile, incredulous laugh escapes me. I was always the one willing to burn things down. She was always the one calculating the fallout. We sit there with the letters between us like evidence. Silence again. But this silence is not avoidance. It's grief. Grief for two girls who did the best they could with the fear they were handed. After a while, she speaks. I never stopped wondering what would have happened if I hadn't distanced myself from you. The memory stings less now. Not gone, but contextualized. I built a life that made sense, she continues. Work, precision, control. I told myself that chapter was closed. And is it? I ask. She meets my eyes. No. The word settles into the room like something alive. I fold my letter carefully and place it back in the tin. She does the same. What do we do now? I ask. This is the real question. Angie studies me the way she used to in the library when deciding whether to say something risky. I don't want to lose you again, she says. It isn't a grand declaration. It's steadier than that. I don't either. I say, we are not 17. We know what fear costs. She reaches across the desk. This time, when her hand covers mine, it is not accidental. It's warm, intentional, adult. The contact sends the same current through me, but it is no longer frantic. It is grounded. We can't rewrite 20 years, she says. No, we can't. She meets my eyes. I stand without meaning to. She watches me cross the small space between desk and window. The room feels smaller now. Or maybe we are finally occupying it. The grief is there. But so is something else. She steps closer. Close enough that I can see the pulse at her throat. I have replayed that day for 20 years, she says. Every version where I say something different. Every version where I don't let you stand there alone. Her voice lowers. I never stopped loving you. I don't remember deciding to touch her. My hand lifts, hovers. She answers by leaning in the smallest fraction, wordlessly granting me permission. My fingers brush the skin of her jaw. Warm. Real. 20 years collapses into contact. Her breath leaves her slowly, like she's been holding it since we were 17. Zawadi, she moans softly. The sound of it slides through me. You don't get to say that and stand that far away, I murmur. A flicker of that old, almost smile. She whispers, then don't let me. I close the distance. Foreheads nearly touching. The restraint is worse than anything. Her hands hover at my waist, unsure, remembering old rules. We're not children, I say. No, she whispers, her breath feathering my lips. We're not. But she still waits. I realize then she has spent her whole life calculating fallout. So I take the risk this time. I kiss her. Not desperate. Not tentative. But intentional. The first second is stillness. Recognition. Then her hand fists in the fabric at my back like something reclaimed. It isn't frantic. It's deep. It's 20 years of withheld instinct given permission. When we break apart, neither of us steps back. Her forehead rests against mine. A shaky breath. A quiet, almost disbelieving laugh escapes her. We wasted so much time, I whisper. We survived it, she corrects. That's who she is. Even now. I slide my hand to her neck, thumb tracing the line of it, memorizing what age has changed and what it hasn't. I don't want careful, I tell her. She studies me, measuring as always. You won't get reckless, she says. A challenge. I don't need reckless. I kiss her again. This time she doesn't hesitate. Her hands are sure now. Exploratory in a way that says she has imagined this, not abstractly, but specifically. When she pulls back, her composure is gone. If we do this, she says, voice unsteady for the first time, we do it in the open. Not buried. Not hidden. It's a promise. I know. She presses her mouth to mine once more, slower, deliberate, and this time the kiss deepens without fear. No teachers. No watching eyes. No pretending. When we finally separate, it's because breathing requires it. She rests her palm over my heart. Still reckless, she murmurs. Still worth it, I answer. And the look she gives me then is not the look of a friend reunited. It is recognition. Choice. Desire that has survived scrutiny.
Liked this? Every heartbeat in Africa tells a story. Subscribe to feel it.